I bought this bike a couple months ago. When we got it, you were able to pull start it and it would run, but you couldn't kick start it. We did a compression test, a very cheap, weak version of a compression test. We did it wet and dry. Dry, we had almost no compression. When we added some fluid in there, it seemed to boost it up a lot, and that's a strong indicator of rings. We also found in this motor, when the valve adjustments were out, we adjusted those in hopes to bring some life back to the motor, but that didn't happen. So today, we are pulling the top end off. We're pulling the jug, or the sleeve, the cylinder. We're pulling the top end, that's where the combustion chamber is, and your rocker arms are. We're going to pull it off and take a look at the piston, the rings, and the cylinder to see what the specific problem with the compression is. This video isn't specifically about the teardown, it's more about the no start diagnostic, but I'll show you really quick what we're doing to pull the head off, and we'll go from there. Strangely enough, it's a 13. The Japanese like to use 12s, 14s, and 10s, where American we usually use 13s and 15s. These bolts hold the rocker assembly in addition to being the cylinder head bolts. Somebody been in this motor before. I was watching a video on YouTube the other day, and jeez, I think they got a little overzealous on these. Anyways, within his video, they were saying they installed a 100 and something cc big bore kit, and he stated that the guy who rebuilt it ended up using a vise, hammers, and something else to put the rings in. When he pulled the motor apart and got to the piston, the oil ring was all over the place and it wasn't seated. That could cause all sorts of different problems. I don't know what we're seeing here. I bought this from a couple teenagers who got it from other teenagers who, I don't know. I don't have smell-o-vision in here, but it smells kind of burnt as far as the oil. So I'm definitely thinking this thing got overheated or abused or somewhere along those lines. We shall see. I'm going to take these bolts out for the cam chain. Careful not to drop them in the motor. Sometimes it helps to actually touch them with a magnet to hold on to them so they don't drop. Use the bike, and it's a dirt bike, so you're gonna kind of be harsh on it, but there's harsh, and then there's just downright abuse. This cam tensioner that's in there. I haven't done a lot of work on these bikes, but it seems like they really tightened that one up pretty good. I'm just using something to hook that chain so it doesn't fall. I'm going to pull the cam assemblies out now. When I pull this off, I'm going to take a better look at the cams. When I did the compression test earlier, I was able to look in there when I adjusted the valves and take a good look, looking for pitting, scoring, signs of dirt and stuff. You'll see that within the scoring. I don't think you can see it, but I've got a large cake pan that this motor's sitting in. That way, if it spills any oil, makes a mess, everything's just contained and makes for a cleaner workspace. My favorite thing to use, which I don't have right now, is a soft face hammer. It's cast iron. I've got a brass hammer I'm used to loosen everything up just a little bit. You really don't want to pry on it unless you really have to, because there's too many surfaces that can be damaged. Couple taps. Alright, the rocker arms are off. They can only go one way. Here's the cam. Cam itself is in good shape. Your nose have a little bit of scarring in there. Nothing terrible. It'll live. But there's the camshaft. I try not to use too much power on the drill, I just use it to help remove things. Bolt holds one of the tensioners in. All he does is rotate back and forth, adjusting a chain tension. There's a cam and a seal. Bring the head out. Not sure what they put on there. We'll clean it up. I'll check out the valves. The black part of the head says it's been running rich. This also tells you, low compression. Put him to the side for the moment. Those are safe for being neat. Looking into the cylinder for wear. It's only got a carbon ridge. There, you get a little bit of side play. Piston's kind of scored up. Take that piston off real quick, get a better look at it. The clip is still in there, it's got an extension. This is the piston. Doesn't have too much wear, it's got a little bit of front side scoring. A little bit of a rear. Nothing really bad as far as the rings. I just have to measure them and go from there, but sometimes you like to look for something very solid and noticeable. And this is really not the case. And with the fact that the valves both are closed right now because there's no cam to push them, I'm going to pour some fluid in the intake and the exhaust ports. We're going to see if anything leaks out. Poured it in the intake, and it comes right out. That'll cause some low speed compression issues. Wipe it up. So we're going to end up lapping the valves. See what the exhaust looks like. Pour the magic elixir in. Don't need any more than that. Exhaust seems to be holding fine. And so I gotta lap the intake valve, make sure it seats fine. And I'm gonna compare the specs. I'm gonna bring the piston assembly and the sleeve down to the machine shop. We're gonna look at what the good specs are. We're gonna compare the two, see if we have anything to worry about with that. If not, then our problem just might be as simple as that intake valve.
But what we do know is that more than 90% of man-made warming is being absorbed by the